Welcome back to LuminaTalks, and in this episode, I'm talking with Marta Bieńkiewicz. She has a PhD in neuroscience and a real fascination for technology.
We would first have to work on trust, digital trust with those agents. And then there are technical challenges. What does your agent know about you? What it doesn't know about you? And what do you not know about your agent?
And what I love about her journey is how she went from studying the human brain to working in AI.
If you're using an agent that is being deployed by somebody else, you don't know everything about it. People are still getting cyber sick, no matter how good the technology is.
And before we dive in, here is one key learning you should really remember. Cyber sickness is still a problem in VR and XR. So if you've been using a headset, don't drive right after. Your brain needs a moment to readjust. Your balance, reaction time, even your depth perception can be slightly off. And that's just the first one. So in this episode, I've pulled out 15 key moments and takeaways that you can bring to your company, to your team, or whatever project you're working on. So stay tuned. There are 40 more to come. So as we get into AI agents, the ethical tension behind them, and how trust, identity, and cooperation are changing fast. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's jump in. Marta, your story is pretty wild, to be honest. You started in neuroscience, moved into VR and neuro-rehab, and now deep into AI policy, helping shape how AI systems behave and how we can trust them. So not a typical career path. So Marta, one of my first burning questions is, how do you go from studying the human brain to negotiating with machines about how they should behave?
I used to work in a psychiatric clinic after finishing my studies in psychology, and I really liked it. And I focused on the neuropsychology, so trying to do some behavioral assessment of patients with brain injury or psychiatric condition. And I felt I wanted to understand a bit more than just like testing and questionnaires and assessments. So I went on my journey to study, which ended up in doing a PhD, which I never imagined I will ever do. And I got into analyzing of human movement and trying to use technology to enhance human movement. This sounds a bit confusing perhaps, but I was working with Parkinson's disease patients trying to produce like artificial sensory information. So for example, like a moving dot or a sound that would help them to move more efficiently. And this was my first intersection between human health and brain health and technology. And later on, I started to use machine learning to do some data analysis. It was always like clustering of data points, trying to find patterns I didn't see with my naked eye and, statistical skills. And as I continue my journey, and I worked in different European labs, lived in different countries, I got close to using VR and XR to try to create something called embodied artificial agents. So that means like avatars that would work with you to enhance your, again, movement performance, for example, in sport or with patients with chronic pain. So creating like a virtual therapist that would help patients move and increase their amplitudes of their movement. And that would feel like the interaction is a bit more meaningful than it is when you're interacting with artificial virtual character. So this is like what I would call like a proto-interaction. There isn't a true interaction when you're discussing something with artificial virtual character. And that brought me closer to ethics of AI and governance of AI. Because when you work in European projects, you usually do things very ethically. You're bounded by your funding in the project, so you have to develop something that is very human-centric. So this is very trustworthy. You need to make sure this is not causing any harm, that this is adding value. So you're very, very careful. And I realized that all we develop in the lab during those European projects is usually very interesting and very ethical and very nice, but it's not how technology is progressing on the outside of academic bubble. And then I thought, well, I have all this scientific knowledge. I understand a bit about how humans operate. And maybe I could do something important in governance of AI that seems to be tackling big questions and, it's big impact, much bigger than what I was doing in the lab. And that brought me on a path on upskilling. So I started doing trainings in tech stewardship, digital policy, governance of AI. And then I ended up pivoting outside of academia. So this is a long answer, but I guess it would give you a bit of my profile.
And one of the thing that I had in mind is, but how are you then still today a scientist in your job? Because your PhD, how does this influences your day-to-days?
Yeah, I think I'm still a scientist in my head, even when being on working in policy and governance around AI, you look at a lot of papers that are being released. Some of them are not peer reviewed, for example. And the field in terms of like benchmarking evaluation is like a proto field. It's not yet, there isn't really a good science of how to evaluate those AI systems, meaning like large language models. So that gives me a bit of critical eye, to be honest, and skepticism at times. Thinking, can we do better? And can I infer the results of this study towards like any kind of policy insights? But I guess you could come from different backgrounds and also have this kind of scientist mindset.
And one of the things that you mentioned, you're a scientist, but when you're a scientist, you're still also already involved in the ethical questions. So more or less, that was the first touch where you came about ethical AI and all those things. But what was then the moment that you decided, okay, now I want to really move to more that side of the spectrum within AI or smart technologies? What was that trigger for you?
Yeah, I think the ethics in AI is really conflated term. So I want people to refer to as ethics. So when you think about fairness and bias, this is what usually people associate with ethics. Whereas some of the things around AI alignment in my head are closer to the real ethical moral dilemmas about what is good, what is a bad behavior. I think I'm interested across the spectrum and pretty much everything concerning how we're building technology. And I am really at the intersections. So I work at the Cooperative AI Foundation. I work on the tech policy within that team, but I also am associated with Center for AI and Digital Policy. And that is really focused on democratic values, the rule of law, and protection of democratic order. So I think I'm just trying to reconcile in general the societal interests in my daily work.
And maybe one thing that popped up in my mind when you worked on a VR research level, what are the things that stuck with you as AI became smarter?
One of the things is mirroring. So when you're creating an agent that is conversational, you want to use the principle of mirroring. So this is something that you and I do naturally when we converse and we are enjoying the conversation. We do like micro movements and micro expression to tell each other we're attentive. I know what you're saying. I have similar experience. And this kind of principle of synchronicity and trying mirroring is the bonding thing. So when you're thinking about interaction with those very modern large language model engine sort of simulations of avatars, they can make the interaction very smooth for you, like almost frictionless. And interaction between humans is never frictionless. This is the beauty of human relationships. They're difficult. And one of the things we've been grappling with some ethicists and DMU University in UK was we have to introduce friction to those interactions with artificial agents because otherwise we're going to make them addictive. And then, comes the parallel that a lot of the technology that is being deployed at the minute is done in a way that is addictive. It is almost frictionless. It creates a sensation of being listened to and of getting somebody's attention, such as, for example, from chatbots and character in AI. You feel really important. You feel like the sense of warmth, of being listened to. And I think those are like kind of urging ethical questions about design of this technology. So in principle, you shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, and I think while, let's say, the VR boom was there, I think 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I had always the idea that it's like you have a movie. I don't know what it is. Is it Player or something else, where the real people are all wearing glasses, and the movie is really only the VR world, and it's insane how. Yeah, I wasn't thinking of it. How would our world be if we would go in that direction, with a world where everyone is wearing goggles, where you have only interactions in that space, where you do payments in that virtual world like it's reality, where virtual reality becomes reality and vice versa. I was, let's say, something that popped up in my mind a few years ago is, yeah, but what would be the impact for our society, for the people's interactions, the relationships we have, and also the cognitive thing that we have is, yeah, how will we interact with people? And I think that's, yeah, it's something that I never will forget, that feeling, that momentum, that everyone was talking about it, but it frightened me, to be honest.
It should frighten me. It's you know, so there was this Apple Vision Pro. I think that everyone thought they're gonna be so the take up is gonna be enormous. I think there is one problem that, at least from still a few years ago when I was in the lab, was still present, is the cyber sickness. People are still getting cyber sick from getting the VR glasses, XR glasses, no matter how good the technology is. So this is the physical aspect. When you take them off, you need to readjust again with your vision to your surroundings. So it's not a smooth transition. It's really dangerous, actually, when you're thinking like you could be wearing the glasses and riding your bike, or, riding your car. The aspect that you are not making eye contact with people around you is disastrous for your social relationships. So this is something that I see, and this is my observation, like almost as an armchair, social psychologist. So many people now, like you see young mothers with their kids, and when the child is very small, it's always seeking the gaze of the mother when it's like breastfeeding or playing or showing an object. And usually the parent doesn't have to be a mom, needs to follow the gaze of the child and reassure the child before it starts talking that, yes, I've seen it. Yes, it's important. Yes, it's dangerous. No, it's fine. And I think now you see that, again, I don't want to be the preacher about the smartphones, because I think we are all using too much of smartphones on a daily basis. But you see that, for example, the carers of children are just engrossed in their phones, and they don't reciprocate this eye contact with children, which I think is going to effectively take away something from children's social development. Are they going to be able to interact the same way, reciprocate all this gaze interaction with other humans, with their peers? I think we only will see it in, I don't know, in a decade or something. But I agree with you. I think this is definitely not the direction we want to pursue. And I think ideas like metaverse that were, reheated, I think already twice, that this is going to really take off very soon. They never worked. And I think one of the things is that it's taking away something very crucial about our experience of being alive, because for us it's being social.
Yes, but I think still there is a big community that lives solitary in a way, far from everything. And sometimes it can be an escape route, a route where, yeah, everyone is nearby in a way, and you can collaborate with everyone anywhere, any place. But yeah, it's still not reality. And I think I don't know how far I want to see this develop. But I think it's also a very ethical question. There is, yeah, who should decide how far and what you can do in these virtual reality environments, not to impact children's and all elder people, who are, let's say, trying to find things in their world that they don't find in their real world. And I think that's a challenge, I think.
For sure. For sure, I agree with you. On the other hand, there is always like this dual use of this technology. I know people who are working in robotics for medicine. And for example, there is significant advancement with doing teleoperations. So you have a surgeon, like for example, eye surgeon, operating in Munich on a child that is like, in a country that is like 2,000 kilometers away, using VR system and a robotic arm in this remote location. So you can see true benefits of use of this technology. When it comes to entertainment or filling in the kind of need of belonging, I'm always a little bit skeptical, but on the other hand, I'm sure, there are circumstances when people feel isolated. I don't know if technology is always the kind of solution to isolation.
I fully agree. By the way, the example you gave came from Orsi Academy here in nearby in Ghent. They have really executed that operation from a location near Ghent with the patient somewhere else, and it was indeed that exact. And it was recently, a few weeks ago, a month ago.
Yeah, I think there is someone from my network from Munich that used to be professor in eye surgeries and robotics who shared this, I think, with the network, and I saw it, and this is when I read it. I was like, wow, this is amazing. I'm so happy this is happening.
Yeah. And the patient does not have to move. So you can imagine, what extra it means for patients, because not everyone is that mobile to go to US for an expensive surgery. The surgeon will come to you. You don't know. You don't want to know that he's maybe 10,000 kilometers away, but he will help you. And I think that's at the other hand of the spectrum and an amazing improvement. But as always, there are the pros and the cons. It's up to the users to be enough aware of both sides.
I know there is a lot of people interested in concept of like technology, like machine love, So this is like slightly more utopian vision. So if machines or interactive artificial agents that would allow you for like personal growth, so would be your coach and would develop your sense of self-love. So kind of like therapeutic, but more about the way you live. And it wouldn't be pretending something that it's not. So it wouldn't be like artificial entity. Let's say you give a name, this is my artificial girlfriend. It would just be an interface that would interact with you, or an agent interacting with you that would allow you to reconnect with your significant others or build relationships with other people, but would give you some kind of like affiliative reassurance or things like this. I think it's quite interesting.
Mm-hmm. It is. But the time will tell how far we will go with this technology. Hey everyone, I see a lot of comments from viewers who didn't realize they weren't subscribed. So I've got a small favor to ask. Please take a moment to double check if you're subscribed to the channel. It's a quick, free action that really helps keep everything we are doing here on track. But here is the thing. This isn't just me working on the show. I've got an incredible team of talented professionals behind the scenes. And your support makes all the difference in allowing us to keep delivering high quality content. Every time you subscribe, you're not just supporting me. You're supporting an entire team dedicating to make the show the best it can be. Thank you for being part of our journey. You're helping to shape the story we're telling together. And I'm truly grateful for that. So go ahead and double check your subscription. And thank you once again for being such an important part of our community. We've all seen the upcoming rise of agentic. So that it not just answers prompts, but they also take initiatives. They act on behalf of us. So, and suddenly businesses, they embrace them and incorporate them in their teams. But when that happens, line blurs. So when do you think an AI agent crosses the line from being just software as we know it today to something where we're letting it act in my behalf? How do you see this evolve? For example, you have your email, your inbox. it can sense, it can emails, can interpret emails, but you can even go further. Maybe it can close deals. It will make maybe partial decisions for you and assign documents. Yeah. Where do you see this go?
This is a really complex question because one thing is where the technology is going to go. Is it ever going to be robust to allow us for such deployment, the one you're speaking about, which is like delegation of your identity and of managing like your inbox or your passport, your credit card, and whether we'll have a governance infrastructure to truly allow this to happen. So in terms of the technological development, as well as me, probably like last year was the year of agents, this year is the year of agents. We see there is a lot more deployment of AI agents, especially in e-commerce. I think people are trying to play around with agentic workflows to a certain degree of success and improving prediction depending on the application. When it comes to fully embracing this concept, we are giving away a lot of our autonomy to artificial agents. We would first have to work on trust, digital trust with those agents. And then there are technical challenges. One is the information asymmetry. So is what does your agent know about you, what it doesn't know about you, and what do you not know about your agent? So you haven't built your agent. I know some people are able to build their own agents, but if you're using an agent that is being deployed by somebody else, you don't know everything about it, right? You don't know how it's going to behave. And then you're giving it instruction. So instruction can be like, sort out my inbox. This is quite simple. But any more complicated instruction gets a bit more tricky because it can be misunderstood by the agent. And again, and then there's a question of like, is the agent going to be always loyal to you? Or is it going to further incentives of the deployer, for example, to do something else that is in the interest of the deployer of the technology if you don't own this agent? And, how is it going to impact your interest and also collective interest? So this is the question that is quite close to the issues around cooperative AI and kind of thinking about group community interests. So in my interest might be that I want to get very rich overnight and I want my agents to play the financial market, right? But in the interest of community, this is not the case. We don't want one person to win everything, right? Yeah, so I think there's a lot of conceptual things that need to be sorted out. We don't have the basic governance structure yet for agents. We don't really have IDs or passports for agents. There are concepts like digital signature. So anything that the agent would do on your behalf would have to be signed off by the agent somewhere in a log. Then later on, you would have to be able to access. Or if something goes wrong, who is accountable? So am I accountable that my agent, I don't know, negotiated a price of something, but actually ripped off the seller in some way because it used some kind of negotiation technique? So there's also a questions of equality of agents. There was a recent paper published by Matthew Sharp around the issues of equality of agents. How many agents will you have? How many agents will I have? Are my agents going to be smarter or more capable than your agents because they have more money? How does it going to impact any of those like social contracting things? How are we going to build trust? All of those things. And not even mention the fact that agents can, communicate and how they're going to communicate it. Are we always going to have oversight over the communication? So this comes with challenges. It comes also with opportunities. So when you ask me about do you think agents are going to be ready to, I think the agents are ready to sort your inbox, of course. Yeah. Would I allow agents to reply to all of emails in my inbox? No.
To be honest, that's just a small step. There is a lot of other steps to take that are way more complex processes that in theory can be done. But I think then you go into a kind of direction that can be very painful in a way in different aspects of it for the human, for the company, because it can harm it. And the problem is always, it's never an issue if it does well. it's always a problem if it doesn't do it well, because it impacts the people, right? But it's always, they will only complain about if something goes wrong and not when something goes well. And I think there are sometimes ethical, in a way, also sometimes philosophy wise questions, but I think that's also part of the discussion, because it's unknown ground for all of us, even if you're into this field day in, day out. It's it's really amazing. Where we are just in the beginning of something beautiful, I think, but also with a lot of pitfalls. And I think you mentioned one aspect is trust. Yeah, what is trust for you, in a way that for example, an agent would negotiate something for you? What is trust? Because it's not always easy to measure it. How do you see this?
Oh, this is I love this question. I am part of digital trust community, which is grappling with a lot of those questions around informational integrity. For example, online, can you trust online content, especially in the era of generative AI? And I had this conversation with a couple of people in this community. What is digital trust in the context of agents? For me, and I come from, again, this is going to be my neuroscientist cell activating. We trust people that the behavior we can predict of. And I think it's something similar. For me, if I could predict how the machine or computer or any kind of tool is going to behave, I tend to trust it. Another path of achieving this is, for example, having norms or kind of certification, or somebody else testing this for me and telling me this is fine to use, it's compliant, it passed the norms, it's safe. This is the same way you buy all the stuff and I don't know, home appliances. They're all certified with European norms in Europe. And that means they're safe to plug in. Nothing should happen. You shouldn't be electrocuted the moment you switch it on. So I think it would be something similar. Either I would like to see a certification of a sort to know, yeah, your data is safe. Your data stays with you, for example. The agent is never going to reveal any private information about you. And there are ways of doing it in terms of digital identity. And alternatively, I would have to play with the system and test it in different environments, red team it, and be like, okay, seems fine. What is the added value of using this system? So now the added value might be, and depends what is my job, is that I'm better at my job. I have more free time, for example. I am quicker. When I can operate on larger scale. So if I'm trying to sell something, my agent can send 1,000 emails in a millisecond, right? So that's faster than what I can do or automate otherwise. So it all depends on the trade-off of my incentives and what is the risk I'm willing to take.
And still remember that first discussion we had was about the identity of the agent. How can we enforce that? Because at the end, when we had, let's say, it was a kind of partial philosophy discussion, but at the end, if I'm using an agent or multiple agents and my job has X, but that agent will do things for me. But what is then the identity? Because he has access, or it has access to X data, X tools, X I don't know what, and it will do like I would do it myself. But now it will be not me, but it will be that agent. Yeah, but what is then the identity, and what is then the link to the responsibility of that virtual identity? Is that bot something that is, let's say, a Kevin or Marta 2.0 doing a part of my job, but then who's taking the risks? Is it me? Is it my company? How do you see this link to that identity of that agent?
Yeah, I think this is a really complex question. I really love it because so there are some attempts, Kevin, I'm sure you heard about trying to create agents that would represent people in a kind of democratic context. So I would create a persona of Kevin. There'll be your agent. Your agent Kevin would go and vote in community referenda, and you would just represent you everywhere. let's say you have some interest, like in your community, you want more cycling lanes, you want solar panels. Your agent would sort all of that for you. You would just go to every single meeting, like kind of put your points forward. And I think one thing is that once you don't have a memory of doing it and you haven't seen this being logged anywhere, you will no longer, this will no longer be representative of you, like almost like in quantum physics, because something has changed. You haven't observed this, right? So for me, this is no longer the second your agent does anything without you seeing it and understanding how it's done it. There is already like a disparity, a gap that is only going to grow with more activities. So for me, this is not resolved unless, now we're getting really sci-fi, you would have a human-computer interface. So we're striking back to the 90s. You would have something in your brain that would have a chip. Then the agent would be plugged into, and you would like collate and accrue new memories via this agent. But I think this would overwhelm you again, because humans cannot process the kind of scale and speed of information of like AI agent processing. So I don't think it's a good idea at all. What I find really interesting is whether we can build any kind of fidelity between agents and humans. So can we create representation of you that you would identify with and could like loyally represent you on the outside? So I think technology can win out there.
It's still a big step to take, but I think if we can really achieve that, I think that's definitely a very big step forward for every human on Earth. But still, there are, of course, still real risks involved, things that we still not know based on actions. So the question is, will it be still us, or it will be the agent, and who will take most actions / decisions in the future? Is it then the agent or is it us? Like following blind the output, the decision from that specific agent. Is that also not a potential threat in a few years?
I think there was a threat of this kind of happening because there's a lot of interest in. So again, I'm really in favor of deliberative democracy. So as you know, we all care about maintaining democratic order. We want all have the freedom of speech. We want our liberties preserved. We want to be taken care of by our nation state. And we currently live in democracy that is like based on electoral system. So we have representatives. You are voting for representatives of what we have to say. There is a deliberative wave. So there's a lot of interest in citizen assemblies, which I'm particularly fond of. So this concept that people come together, select the citizens, and they just deliberate. They deliberate of a controversial topic. It can be like, euthanasia or something that is quite polarizing. And then you ask them to give their opinion on what kind of solutions should be implemented by the nation state. And obviously, this is later on taken into account by legal experts. But the point being is you're giving power back to the people. And some people think that representative agents will be the step for empowering every single person everywhere to be more involved in collective decision making. So we no longer will have so this is the concept, right? We no longer have political parties, and we are not voting. We just delegate all our views, let's say, to those agents, and they start deliberating, right, on all those things, like setting the budget for I don't know, environmental protection or things like this. And for me, again, the problem is going back to the point you have raised is after all this deliberation. So if I discuss something with you, I then think about it a little bit and I integrate new information from you, and I might change my mind because your arguments are really good. You actually have much more knowledge on the subject than I ever did. So naturally, I'm going to incorporate it as something might shift in the way I think about some polarizing issue. So now your agent is going to do this. He's going to have millions of interactions with other agents, and maybe he's going to shift your original point of view, and then he's going to go back to you. Obviously he's not going to go back, but it's going to give you oh, Kevin, by the way, I voted this because I was convinced by, those other agents. And for me, it's going to be really hard for you to be okay, how did it happen? Like, who did you speak with? I don't agree with this. This is complete drift from my original preferences. So yeah, I think there might be, I see a rationale and incentives for using those kind of representative agents, but I also think it's going to be really tricky in terms of fidelity. But I have something else that is quite interesting. So this collective intelligence project, which is a nonprofit, is looking a lot about those like global dialogue about alignment of AI. But they also worked on a project looking whether you can represent physical entities, but not animated entities. So, for example, mountains or seas, right? Okay, hold with me. So let's say you're discussing, I don't know, some kind of UN new policy on sustainable use of seas, right? And all of a sudden in the discussion, you have agent representing the interests of the, I don't know, exactly, of the oceans, right? This completely changes everything. And I really like this. I think it's quite novel approach. It was never, we never thought about it before, but I think it'll be cool.
I would like to have that conversation with that.
With a mountain?
Talk with Mount Everest or talk with the Atlantic Ocean. Hey, how is it going? How is your life?
Exactly. It's like too many tourists. Stop.
Yeah, the question is, how quick can this become reality? Because it can be pretty fun, I think. But in the other way, yeah, everything on Earth deserves, in a way, a kind of representation. And yeah, at least, I don't know how that debate would go, but I'm curious. And I think that's the starting point, the curiosity to see how will this evolve, is it possible, and what would be the impact on policies. Marta, I want to go back to something you and I discussed in our first conversation a while ago, but to be honest, it became pretty serious. Everyone is talking about agents, and agents are often LLMs and with a certain process. But as you are also in neuro field, I think, how do you see an evolutionary AI playing a role with agentic? Because at the end, agentic are often big LLMs, but at the end, without proper instructions and a process, they are stupid stuff. They don't know what to do. But with neuroevolution or evolutionary AI, you really develop a kind of brain where assets are connected, and you build a kind of brain where, let's say, cars are connected, and every node is a car in that big brain. Because an agent can be a car, can be a plane, can be, and you don't want that they crash, of course. So maybe we could go into that area where we say, okay, how far are we from that kind of evolutionary AI? And do you think and what will be the impact for agents in a collaborative way? Is that maybe a good idea from your background?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm just going to tell you about this. Like, I have not worked with evolutionary AI. I'm just trying to look into what this is.
Evolutionary AI the concept is the following. It's like evolutions in humans. You have a parent, you have a father, they mutate, or in diseases, they mutate, they go to another version, and at a certain point they start learning. And after thousands of evolutions, they start learning, So, and it's the same thing. Instead of where you instruct an LLM to do things, evolutionary AI is more focusing on learning things themselves by iterating millions of times and connect every node, every agent then in a bigger puzzle where they are then really connected with each other, and they can really, let's say, if you have let's say all planes on Earth, every plane is a node because they have a computer, and the computer will send all their data together to everyone so that they can fly autonomously. Or if you talk about Elon Musk's dream that everyone can drive self-drive of autonomous driving, yeah, it's the same. You need an infrastructure where the brain of the car is connected with other cars, because to be honest, Tesla can pretend that they can drive autonomously, but how will you avoid that in that entire network from not only cars, but motorcycles, bicycles, everyone who is on the street, they will not collide, because at the end there is, and you need a kind of evolutionary brain that connects all the assets, and the assets can be something physical, a car, but also a human. A human is also part of the area, and I think that could be maybe a link to, yeah, but how do you see this taking place in that evolving world of agentics?
This is really interesting concept. I know there is a lot of hope in areas. There's something called like open-endedness, which is similar to evolutionary AI. So this comes from a similar point of view, that you let the AI agents and AI systems evolve and iterate and go through those loops into another level. The problem is that we will be out of the loop very quickly when this happens. So we'll be no longer able to explain what is happening, and we'll not be able to probably learn and catch up in this direction. So I think letting those AI systems to evolve, or agents, without any kind of safeguards could lead to like breakthroughs in terms of science. And I know that a lot of scientists are working with those open-ended methods. But yeah, I think it's like gets a bit scary when you think about it. Like, how does it make you feel?
Yeah, to be honest, I would accept it in specific use cases like autonomous driving, if we could make that happen. But I think the side effects could lead to unemployment, because if you can connect things with each other, assets, there are so many assets there. For example, operators in production facilities. If you can connect robots with each other, you don't need operators anymore, or less operators. Pilots, you don't need them anymore. Taxi drivers, you don't need them anymore.
So hold on, you would have this evolutionary AI brain, let's say, would coordinate movements of a lot of those points we're talking about. So you delegate the control
to the assets, to the agent.
to the assets. Okay, that's something a little bit different. Okay, I think. So do you think this is technologically possible?
To give you
in the
a
near
glimpse,
future?
we are currently busy with that. Because one of the aspects of agents is how do you let them communicate on a very high speed way with very low latency, because that's the fundament. You need low latency. So one of the aspects that we are, let's say, try to replicate is, let's say, how WhatsApp or Discord is communicating between clients. Every agent is a client. You have, and they are in touch with everyone, more or less. And currently, we are in a proof of concept where we can connect 200,000 agents, clients, with each other, where they can connect every second with each other. So we can all of them together. Yes.
Without any nodes, like hubs.
Yes, that's because it's decentralized. So it's a decentralized AI infrastructure to connect 200,000 assets that can connect on a second basis with each other. Because what is the use case? Is how can, for example, the energy grid and a community, how can they be self-sufficient? How can they run without any human in the loop? On the focus I have energy over, they have energy left. I need X kilowatts because my neighbor has a solar panels. How can that community and that brain on top of that community, talking with maybe 200,000 houses, connect with each other with 200,000 data sources and decide who gets what, so that the community is the balance between what is available and what is needed is completely managed by that smart system.
This sounds great.
But it's still in a proof of concept phase, to be honest. But the theories at the moment showed us that we can, at the moment, 10,000 houses simulate on a second basis, and with a few tweaks right now and some improvements, we can go to 200,000. But that's then step 1, 2, what we would, let's say, achieve in the coming weeks.
And you're using simulated data for this?
Currently, it's only simulated data, yes.
Do you think it's going to be more challenging with the real data, the messy data?
Yes and no. It depends, of course, again, the use case. If you know in which format you receive certain inputs, then it's in a fixed form. The input data from energy. Yeah, it's pretty simple. You have your timestamp and you have your metadata linked to that the timestamp. But of course, if it is just documents, documents come in every form and file format. It can be also pictures, can be everything. That's a different story. But let's say the use case for us is mainly focusing on IoT or high frequency, low latency use cases.
So you would try to prevent like energy loss in the grid? You optimize?
Optimization, self-driving cars, self-flying
Drones?
drones in Europe. They need a kind of security shields where all drones in Europe are securing a certain area without humans in the loop, because every plane, every drone has a computer on board, and you need a drone pilot or a pilot to cool. So why would you need them? Because at the end, your fail-safe is today the human. But to be honest, I don't want to yell it or to say it too hard. But if someone decides to bomb down a certain headquarter where all the pilots are located, you have no drones in the air anymore. So why would you then have pilots if you have an autonomous squad, a swarm, assisting a certain region in protecting you? It's also then the question, it saves people, but then the contrary. You have then an autonomous system that can also go nuts in a way sometimes. Hopefully not, but you're not sure. So I think that's how do you see this evolve? Is this something where people has to worry about, or is this for certain specific use cases also a possible an enabler for new innovations and in fields that we are not known at the moment?
Yeah, I think so. No, it's a really interesting topic because I think with autonomous driving, I know we have, I think, do we have in Europe any kind of city with autonomous cars? No, I think it's not allowed even, if I'm not mistaken. But so for example, Waymo cars still have teleoperators, right? And in this oversight team, from what I've heard, there is at least one person oversight over a car or a couple of cars, right? When they get stuck, when something happens. So with automated driving, as far as I understood, there is still the problem of scaling. You can do it in a small kind of controlled area, and you have human in the loop, kind of in the oversight. But the moment you would like to scale it up, it becomes troublesome because you can't control everything in the environment, right? and you have the safety cases, which probably is something you are doing as well. So you're looking at everything that can go wrong and how to react. But I think it's because if you are transporting people, I think electricity grid is something different. But if you're transporting people, the stakes are really high. The moment you have one accident, your company goes bust pretty much. So you have to be very, very invested in safety. This is the highest incentives you have. But no, I to be honest, for me, use of agents in this like management of electricity grid and natural resources such as water distribution, I would be excited for this to happen, honestly, because I think it could be really good for communities to kind of enhance the distribution of natural resources and just manage in a fair and sustainable way, which is not always the case, as we know. There are free riders in a community. There are people who are just, and companies that are using a lot of natural resources without the agreement from the communities as well. So anyway, I would be excited of a vision of this to materialize. When it comes to transporting humans, I think, I'm a little bit more skeptical. I think it can work on a technical level. Then with scaling, I'm always, I don't know, when you're talking about like pilots, drones, cars, bikes, everything being managed by like one entity, or in some kind of decentralized network, then maybe it could be, if we could work it out, maybe. Safety first.
We have to talk about that. So, all right, Marta, time to turn up the heat. I've got a few questions for you, and I want your raw, unfiltered reactions. So, no time to overthink it. Just go with your gut. The first question is, AI will eventually rule policy making. Do you agree or disagree, and why?
Probably yes.
And why?
Not to everything, but I think we're going to use in the future. I'm not meaning now. I think I see a future where using AI can help policymaking and also to make the whole legal landscape like more user-friendly and more democratic for access. Yes.
And of course, regulations versus innovation, especially in Europe. Europe's AI regulation is killing innovation. What's your take on that?
I'm in the camp. There's both place for innovation and regulation. I think we should incentivize innovation with good regulation. The problem in Europe with the kind of friendly environment for the innovation ecosystem is not only about regulation. So I think some kind of simplification is much needed because we have so many different laws in Europe. But I will be always on the side of regulation because I think people need to have recourse and they need to be able to contest some decisions when it comes to like automated decision making. And ultimately you want to all have power, everyone the same amount of power. And I think law is set out in democratic countries to protect us.
And something we already touched is, should advanced AI agents ever have the possibility to have rights or personhood?
Complex topics, topic very contested. A lot of people argue for AI welfare. So kind of recognition how the AI system is, I think no, not in the current stage of development.
And what's, in your opinion, most overhyped, metaverse or AGI?
Both.
And why?
I mean, it's a completely different profile for metaverse. I think was never that kind of in the mainstream as AGI is. Metaverse is different because metaverse was at least kind of defined as a vision and a concept. AGI is not really well defined. There's like many definitions around it. I don't know. I think both really, really overhyped.
And multiple AIs collaborating will cause more harm than good?
Not necessarily. So this is funny because the majority of my work around policy is coming around mitigation of the multi-agent stuff. So thinking about all the incidents and safety cases that we need to account for when the Okay, there's going to be another excursion. Agents can interact in open environment. That means they're not like multi-agent workflow. Doesn't mean like one company, many agents in-house, but in a real world. So we're talking about like safety mitigations, looking at those scenarios. However, I think the multi-agent interaction is also the path towards really great things when it comes to innovation. So I do not agree. I would like to think this is going to be the route towards breakthroughs.
The next question is, do you think users will trust AI over humans in the coming maybe 5 years?
This is a great question. Again, I know of research that is showing that people trust AI chat, AI interfaces like ChatGPT or Claude more than they trust AI companies, which is interesting. So they don't trust the big American tech, but they do kind of trust their interface when they ask ChatGPT about advice about, their back problem, let's say. Yeah, I think it depends. Like, we also have different relationship with humans. Some of us are quite fearful and anxious. Some people are more confident. On average, I think this is perhaps possible. Yeah.
And the last one is, cooperative AI is naive, and the future is competitive. So how would you respond on that?
That you would like to build the infrastructure and every single agent to be cooperative, especially in the adversarial conditions. So when there is competition. So you want your agent not to win and everyone else to lose, but you want everyone to win, right? So this would be like a fair cooperation. And this assumes that we are all having different incentives. So this is called like a mixed motive situations and sometimes different goals. And we still have to work it out and cooperate. So yes, cooperative AI agent would be extremely naive. Right now, it would face another agent that would have better capabilities. For example, the capabilities to persuade and coerce. So let's say your agent is like almost Machiavellian and it's negotiating something for you, like your rent when you're renting a flat. And it can negotiate it with your landlord's agent, who's extremely cooperative. And yes, in that case, the cooperative agent would be taken advantage of. The way to resolve this is, I think, to try to build all agents in the way they would be cooperative, and then everyone would win, right? So you would make the game fair. I think this is the big challenge.
That's definitely also something I will pay attention on in what we try to build.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
So let's get into the messy parts, coordination. So everyone loves the idea of AI agents teaming up and to solve problems. But do we know how that works? Or are we just hoping it's all sync? So one of my favorite examples is OpenAI's hide-and-seek experiment. Agents learn to cooperate and outsmart their opponents in ways even the creators didn't predict. We will show some clips here. And it's fun, but also a little eerie, because if agents can teach themselves to cooperate, what else might they learn to do together? Do you think real cooperation between AI agents is achievable? Or are we projecting human teamwork into machines that don't actually understand each other?
I have two ways of thinking about it. One is that with advancement in AI technology, we might find other ways for cooperation that are going to be very efficient, more efficient than we are trying to conceptualize now. Right now, cooperation is really difficult because we don't have the right infrastructure for it. So, for example, we don't have any kind of norms embedded or institutions in the digital environment. So there is almost nothing that would steer agents from doing something. Everything is allowed almost, right? If you only had capability, you could do it. So we need those principles and safeguards in place. And then in the open-ended setting, so in a real world, again, you need to find ways of building protocol between agents that would allow for this cooperation to unfold. and to make sure everyone's interests are preserved, and also that the community interests are preserved. So again, this is between this agent being aligned to you and trying to deliver you what you asked for versus the interests of the community. Like, I'm saying it very broadly, but basically the interests of other users, not to allow you to do something that is exploitative. So yeah, that's basically it. I think when it comes to cooperation in small settings, so you can think about population of agents within a company doing something on their like small model in, I don't know, industry setting, like moving machines or something like this. I think this is less mixed motives. So there is one goal. It's a workflow. I think situations like this, so they're fully cooperative. I think that's easier possibly to achieve in the future. And then what we're talking about, the external kind of cooperation, is in the wild, Kevin's agents meets, I don't know, agent of somebody else. How they're going to interact. That's more complex.
And to be honest, I think no one has an answer on that, how to achieve this. Do you think they're already doing research on that to make that possible?
One strand is called normative infrastructure. So one person is Gillian Hatfield, who's the head of our trustee board. She's an expert. She's has a background in sociology and economics, looking exactly at the problem of trying to build normative infrastructure for agents. So, embedding kind of like safeguards, what agents are able to do, what they are not able to do. So this is like saying, like reflecting almost peer pressure. So it wouldn't be like a police for agents, but it would be more making sure that all agents are just making sure that the norms are enforced. And if they are not enforced, there are like kind of ways of rewarding the desired behavior. So I think it's very interesting. But again, all of this stuff is done in simulations. This is not done in any kind of sandbox scenario.
For example, where do you see the potential benefits of multi-agent AI systems, for example, in tackling complex challenges like climate modeling or disaster response, more efficient than a single AI? How far are we from that? And yeah, where do you see the possibilities?
I'm not an expert on this at all, because those are like kind of fully cooperative settings again, almost. I know that, for example, Earth AI and Google is trying a lot of with like multi-agentic flows with geospatial embeddings, and I think they get some advantages in trying to predict, for example, the I don't know, like any kind of natural disasters or the use of resources or changes in the environment. So I think in terms of improving the predictability, so again, like the output of the models, like big world, big data models, I think there is something exciting about the multi-agent stuff. But I think it's still a lot of work.
Okay. And let's say from a more negative point of view, what were the unexpected behaviors from those systems that researchers have observed from these setups?
As you know, there was like very little yet this interaction between agents in the wild. But what was conceptualized, at least this is what we're using in our foundation, are those 3 failure modes. So one is the conflict. So your agent is going to conflict with another agent because they have the same goal and they want to achieve it, right? They want to buy the last place when you're booking a spot in a restaurant, right? This is a conflict. Then you might have miscoordination. So we have the same goal. I don't know, my agent and your agent is trying to coordinate the water usage in our area. I don't know. And we're unable to align, and as an effect, nobody gets water. And then there is collision, which is really interesting, and it's best studied in a kind of market pricing context, is that you have alignment of your agents and you want them to do something, and actually your agents are colluding with each other and they're achieving a goal that was not specified. So, for example, causing the crash of the market. I mean, I hope that none of this is going to materialize, but this was taken from another kind of branches of sciences.
And how does the Cooperative AI Foundation then approaches safety in general? Because, okay, again, we are still starting, because I'm also part of OWASP community, the more cybersec part of you. What's the take from the foundation?
Yeah, so a lot of our work is, we're trying to support young talent and giving away, for example, PhD fellowships for the most promising researchers in the field cooperative AI with the focus of safety. So almost every single project we fund has embedded safety component in it. That means it's safety by design. So working on the problems around cooperation between agents, for example, how to incentivize cooperation in mixed settings. So again, when we have different goals or different incentives, and how to prevent situation when agents are exploiting each other, or there's a collapse of some kind of big failure, let's say collapse of the whole society of agents or things like this. So it can range from kind of very practical technical problems to maybe bigger challenges that are conceptualized maybe a little bit ahead of the future as well. So yeah, we're trying to stay at the top of the frontier edge.
Okay, and it's then within European level, or is it only in specific areas?
So the foundation itself is primarily based in the UK. It's a charity registered in the UK. A lot of our staff is based in Oxford. So a lot of our circles and research is around Oxford and Cambridge and London area. We have a lot of collaborations with researchers across the globe, in US, South Africa. So we're trying to kind of make research network grow.
Great, nice. I think it's also good that other people know the foundation a little bit more, and where they can find you.
Yes, I think something we struggled with sometimes is that some grants work on different functionalities of the systems, or like grant proposals that can have dual use or might not be exactly safe. And in that case, we always opt to fund work that is dedicated to safety per se. So I think this is our real niche. We are not so much interested in advancing the technology itself. So yes, of course, you want technology more robust because that's usually linked to safety, but primarily we want people who have the safety focus to advance the research. Yes.
Ready for a quick round of personal questions, Marta, to let our audience know your thoughts behind the resume? So, first one is, would you let an AI agent manage your inbox?
Yes.
Should agents have names like people?
No.
Have you ever been tricked by a chatbot?
Yes.
Would you hire an AI agent to negotiate for you?
Yes, because I'm crap at negotiation.
Should we label every AI-generated message, no matter what?
Yes.
Do you trust AI more than a junior employee?
No.
Would you trust an AI to screen job candidates for your team?
No.
Should every company deploying AI be legally required to run safety tests?
Yes.
And have you ever agreed with an AI more than with a human expert?
No. No.
Would you want an AI agent representing you in a public debate?
No.
Yeah, sometimes it's maybe both, but yeah, to be honest, you said more yes than I expected.
Yes, because to manage the inbox was about like sorting out my inbox, not like sending emails to everyone.
It's how you see it, but still, even negotiated for me, I don't know.
Oh, really depends what. I'm so bad at negotiating.
Yeah, but at the end, an agent will be in that case always better. But still, yeah, it's also in creating bonds. If you do it yourself, you can create a bond, and it will help later on. Let's bring this back to the businesses. Every business is building faster, smarter systems. But are we building systems that are trusted, not just by regulators, but by users, employees, the public? So, what will it take, in your opinion, for trust to become a competitive advantage? Not just a compliancy checkbox, to be honest, in how AI gets built and deployed.
I genuinely think, and I argued this across different communities, there should be certification for trust, digital trust. So, like you have B Corporation sign, when you buy your coffee, you don't look whether it has like certified norms. You look whether it was from the fair trade or, whether it's like B Corporation certified. You want to kind of incentivize the good products, good market. And I think some kind of certification around trust, meaning this is respecting your data, this is like in decentralized trust network. I think this could be truly like it could take off with people who would be more aware of their choices. It would have to be also part of a campaign why you should opt for those projects and products. So yeah, to answer it, I think it can be incentivized, and I think it should be some kind of like certification or a label.
Yeah, and the incentive, if that's a very important thing for founders. Do you think that today founders are prioritizing enough safety, or is the focus still too often speed?
I think it's going to be depending on the use case. So again, when you because AI gives you in general advantage of speed and scale, right? So that's inherent. What does it have to offer to you? So why would you use AI if it wasn't for those two qualities, right? I think safety will become a true value when you talk about deployment scenarios like automated or autonomous driving, or I don't know, bank transactions or voting or anything that requires like protection of something. Or for example, information epistemic security. It's something that I'm really interested in. So how will we have eventually information sources that are going to be certified as trustworthy? Right now it's probably going on a, I don't know, some kind of legacy media digital version. And you think when you read stuff on BBC that it's like trustworthy, right? So yeah, I think certification could be a good way out. And I think safety could be incentivized in particular use cases, especially, for example, medical care. Currently, you have nothing you have to do when you're embedding AI system into the medical ecosystem. You don't have ethical board. You don't have to pass any kind of like clinical trial setup. You don't do impact assessments. It's completely open, right? And I think the market or the first incident or the first case when it's going to become problematic will force institutions to kind of prioritize safety or trust, whatever is the most required.
And to start regulate in a way. But you mentioned one important thing, AI trustworthiness. Again, the link to trust. But where and how do you think startups can really use that as a selling point? Because at the end, and how can they prove AI trustworthiness, in your opinion?
I think there should be, a certification you would build from the scratch as a community of startup founders. So, for example, you mentioned you're an OS, right, which is fantastic. Maybe you can have a certification, for example, for cybersecurity or something you can say like, this is safe. We have tested it. We have, I don't know, red teamed it. We have tried to jailbreak it. And it's passing our tests. Or, for example, there are companies that are doing audits of AI systems. And once it passes the audit, it would have certification or some kind of documentation you can show to say, this product is doing what we said it's doing, which I think can be a problem sometimes when you're training your model on synthetic data and then you're looking at the real world deployment and you see that the performance is not the same as it was on the simulation, like during the simulations or using the synthetic data. So maybe then the advantage is not what people have expected, and that becomes problematic.
And often one of the most important points, in my opinion, is the failure. who is to blame? Because at the end, you have an agent, the code, you have the company who's deploying it or buying it, but it's me using it. Yeah, but who is responsible for it? Who pressed go? Is it me who is responsible? Is that already a debate ongoing right now, or is this just not even we know it's an important topic, but it's too early to discuss?
No, I don't think it's too early to discuss. I think, in governance circle, there is work done by Noam called on governing AI agents, which is discussing exactly this point of like liability and how the behavior of the agent is linked to the principal. So the person that has told the agent to do something, right? And then whether principal is responsible or whether there is any kind of configuration of liability. I think to be able to resolve those cases, we'll need to have some kind of IDs for agents. We'll need to have logging. We'll have to have insight into the protocols of communication that the agent had used to communicate with other agents. From the perspective of the multi-agent stuff, again, we might look at the network effects, which is going to be even more messy. So it doesn't have to be something that you have done as a principal or like deployer. It might be the case that in this network, like you mentioned, the evolutionary AI brain, right? When you would have the oversight of everything happening. But there is something like this doesn't exist at the minute, right? There is no oversight over every single autonomous agent on the web. So if something would happen as a accumulation effect of different agents doing something on, let's say, like some marketplace, e-commerce, and then colluding, like who's going to be responsible for that? Like it's going to be really, really difficult to assume responsibility. So one way forward is that during the safety and compliance, you would have to have some standards to assess whether the agent is safe to be deployed in the environment when it's going to encounter other agents, how it's going to behave, and how to prevent collision scenarios or miscoordination scenarios.
Marta, we've covered identity, cooperation, and trust, all through the lens of systems that are evolving immensely fast, sometimes faster than we can label them. So, to close this out, if you had 30 seconds to speak directly to founders and policymakers building the AI future, what would you say to them?
Policymakers, I would say we need regulation. We need infrastructure to have oversight of the systems that are being deployed, right? And I think I would seek transparency because I think some of the conversation around the black box is really superficial. I think more information should be made available about the systems that are being deployed, and also, if something happens, to be able to see the logs from the agentic activity. If I could speak to the AI labs, I would ask them about possibly addressing some of the business models in operation. So to kind of incentivize a little bit more social technology, more cooperative technology, more technology for public good, rather than some technological solutions that are getting a lot of uptake that can isolate people.
Okay. And how optimistic or cautious are you about what's in front of us, let's say in the coming few years?
Yeah, I don't really know. I'm asking myself this question almost every day. Part of me is really optimistic, and thinking that society can incentivize better direction for technology, and thinking about narrow use cases, and from this kind of R&D startup point of view, it's like, what can I make to bring value to my customers? Like, what is going to be a good use of technology? Technology is going to supposedly make life easier, better, right? So things like this really excite me. I'm really excited about all the like Earth imaging stuff that you can do, and how the large models can help us to see the kind of patterns of our Earth ecosystems changing, what we can do to address it. So I'm optimistic about that. I'm less optimistic about the energy use. It's something that I'm A little bit worried about with the upscaling of AI, because currently, there was no kind of value coming back from this hyperscaling in general. Obviously, like all the things we're playing with, they're really cool in terms of productivity gains. I think the robustness is still not there for serious deployment. Yeah, so I think I'm a little bit careful and kind of worried about those like environmental footprint things. It makes it quite difficult to bring in good policy solutions and governance solutions as well, with the amount of interference of like geopolitical things and lobbying and everything else. So yeah, it's a very dynamic ecosystem.
It is. And of course, what is, in your opinion, let's say, one norm we should find in a kind of agreement on when we talk about the AI agents?
Yes. So one thing that I would be very happy if we could achieve in the next year is to kind of set up principles around what agents should do and what they should not do. Right? So kind of like protocol for like savoir-vivre for interaction between agents. And I don't mean only in terms of like this normative infrastructure or thinking about the communication protocols. I think we should think bigger. Like, what are the use cases for agents? What are the kind of use cases we don't want to develop, right? So thinking what this technology is good for, what it's not necessarily good for, and trying to incentivize adoption in the areas that the value back to the society can be enormous.
So in a way, you would prioritize sectors, domains over let everyone decide where they want to build things for. Let's say HR, you can say, I built an HR agent and he will do my recruitments end to end, versus, let's say, another type of agent that is less intrusive in, let's say, who is hired or not hired. So you would more pick, and it's a little bit linked to the risk level, what's written in the AI Act, where you say, to be honest, the AI Act does not have to focus on more or less the use cases, but more focus on these are the areas where we prefer you focus on, because there is the biggest leverage for society, humans, companies, more or less, or governments, instead of, you can do everything, but then you have to have focus on all those more risks. So you have to build in guardrails and other types of things.
Yeah, I think so, because right now I feel there is like this kind of push, which is obviously part of this hype cycle a little bit for adoption of AI everywhere. AI education, AI, everywhere. Instead of thinking very strategically, okay, this is actually consuming a lot of energy. Should we just focus on making something that works and bring us real advantages, right? So like for everybody, and focus on those areas of narrow deployment when you can really get the gain, instead of trying to push it in different applications when the gain is less like perceptible. And also another thing is that you're actually, if you're, just have a couple of providers, you just use technology from a couple sources. That's not good for our ecosystem either.
And to be honest, I think for a lot of people that watched this episode, I'm very convinced that we touched a lot of points they maybe not even thought about. And I'm probably convinced they would like to reach out to you. So where can they find you? Where can they find your work?
Yes. So they should visit the website called cooperativeai.org. And sign up to our newsletters. We have monthly seminars around cooperative AI, and we have monthly seminars which we invite really top tier researchers speaking about their work. There was a lot of research seminars around AI for human cooperation. We have the next seminar next week on Thursday. And yes, they can find me on LinkedIn and always reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Okay, great. I will put it on screen so people can find you. And thank you very much for the in-depth discussion and a slightly philosophic moment.
No, it was such a pleasure to talk about it with you. I have also thought about new things, and I'm very excited about what's happening in the startup landscape and how people are thinking about use of this technology, to really bring value, especially in the European ecosystem. So I'm really passionate about it.
Okay, thank you very much, Marta, for having you in this episode. And for everyone, please reach out and we keep in touch. Thank you very much.